What are we talking about tonight there, Jay?
Yeah, so this was something that has been happening lately. I think this has been happening for a while, but I think about a year ago, people probably started talking about it a little bit more, would you say?
Yeah. Yeah, probably within the last year and a half for sure.
Yeah, so the conversation is going to go towards big tech censorship and suppression.
Yeah, which is happening a lot.
It is.
We're seeing it more and more for sure.
We definitely are. And, you know, it's like you see a president of the United States get kicked off of a platform.
Sure.
And which, you know, you can still argue the point, and we are probably going to get into this a little bit.
Okay.
Google, Facebook, Twitter are still private companies, right?
Sure.
So for them to kick someone off of their platform
but are they though? That's the question too.
Yeah.
But are they? Should they be?
Right. And that's the issue because
utility companies aren't private.
Exactly.
They're quasi-private public.
Yeah.
We go. Everyone needs water. Mm-hmm. Everyone needs LP gas. Everyone needs electricity.
Yeah.
So we have regulated. The government has regulated those private industries to make them private public. There's an argument to be made that maybe the internet is the next utility that needs to be public.
Yeah.
Because we use it for everything.
And that goes into the common carrier law. I don't know. I mean, you know, from just say Southwest is just like, I don't like the way Greg looks.
Right.
So he's not going to be able to fly on our plane.
That's happened before.
You know? And yeah, right. Aren't you on that list? No, I'm joking.
Are you a Christian conservative that believes in life?
Yeah, right. It believes in life after death.
Get off this plane.
Yeah, get out of here. But yeah, I mean, it's getting to that point where is Facebook something? Because I mean, people run their business off of Facebook. I mean, if people get their livelihood taken away by getting taken off Facebook or getting their page suppressed, I mean, this is really not fair, you know, for one, because I mean, if someone has a view, we do have freedom of speech. It goes into that, correct?
Right.
So,
well, it's a classic case of having it both ways. So like your Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, they'll argue and go, look at, we're not the publisher, like the press. We're just the platform to let people self-publish, right? So you can't regulate us. But then they turn around and then they'll censor and suppress and shadow ban and regulate the speech that's on the platform. So it's like, well, which one is it? Because if you're regulating the platform, then you're saying you have some type of control over it,
right?
Which then puts you into the press category, like a free press, right? If you're not, and you're just the publisher of it, then, and you're not creating the content, then you don't get to regulate.
Yeah.
So it's like they're kind of in this quasi state right now where they're having the best of both worlds. Hey man, we just create a platform, people self-publish, but we also want to pick and choose
what can be
said and what can't be said.
Right.
And we're seeing this, oh my gosh, like especially in the last 2 years for sure. And it's pretty one-directional.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of and here's the thing, this should worry Christians and believers, but it's worrying non-Christians. It's worrying the people that are out in the secular culture. You go to, Adam Carolla podcast, or you go to Joe Rogan podcast, or you go to Tim Dillon, or all these other guys that are not believers and pretty carnal and depraved. And they can even see with the moral code that's been written on their conscience by God that this is some type of suppression.
Yeah.
And even guys like Rogan and Dillon, who aren't necessarily conservative, can see that it's happening in one direction. That's the real crazy thing.
Yeah.
Is if you talk about God, and we'll get into some of these examples later, if you're talking about God, if you're talking about the sin of homosexuality, if you're talking about abortion and every preborn baby having a right to life, those things are all getting shadow banned, suppressed, and censored.
Right.
Yet you have vitriol from mostly the progressive left that are espousing these anti-biblical, unscientific, crazy, hateful speech, and it just goes without a pass.
Yeah. And we have to submit to what they're saying, you know. It is what they want. And if you have a different point of view, then you're the bad guy. You're the one making things difficult in this world. You're the one that is, putting people in harm's way by talking about it. It's like, you know what? I think there have been plenty of times in history where someone said something crazy, right?
Right.
Whether in the press, I'm sure I've said something crazy on this podcast and people are just like, what? He said what? But,
we delete it. We take it.
Right. You're right.
They will never hear it, Jason.
Yeah, right. No, but I'm just saying, I mean, like, there is a line that is crossed where we have to have some kind of regulation for sure. Right. I don't know. I haven't really honestly thought about the extremely big topic of freedom of speech, I mean, like, cause I mean, it is broad. I mean, like you could go down so many rabbit holes, but if you're just sticking to, freedom of speech, I believe everyone that has an opinion about something should be able to share that opinion on their page on Facebook, or Twitter or wherever it is. And as long as it's not so crazy, it's like, I think that there stands a safeguard there for them with freedom of speech, right?
That's a good point though. So what is so crazy though? So even you preference that with, even if it's not so crazy. So that's the point, is like, there's a gray area where you even said, even if it's so crazy. So what does that mean to you? Like, what does so crazy mean?
Yeah.
To where they're saying, hey, we're saying
things that I wouldn't say on this podcast.
Right. I know.
Or in life, probably.
But you see the problem, because big tech comes back, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and they're like, well, we think it's so crazy if someone says that marriage is between a man and a woman.
Right.
That if you post America, America, God shed his grace on thee, a trailer about a hymn, we're going to pull it.
Right.
And that's actually an example that we had. It was a trailer for a documentary earlier last year, and a Google spokesperson said, oh, well, it didn't meet our sensitive events policy designed to protect users from harmful advertising. And they were the public was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And after pushback, after a couple million people, tweeted and retweeted and outrage, they said, oh, we enforce our policies consistently regardless of political or religious affiliation, but we're sorry about this one. This one got mislabeled. And it's like, so that's what we're up against, is they continually take a foot and then give 4 inches back.
Right.
And go, whoops, we're sorry.
It's been hard watching, people online that have actual data about this pandemic. And even doctors that want to talk about it, that are being shadow banned, suppressed. You can't say certain things unless Fauci said it. Even on our podcast, I think we may have even crossed their line. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but a few months ago, I mean, we were getting thousands of views on our Facebook page. Thousands of, likes on a few of our posts. I mean, maybe not every time or whatever, but there were at least that many people seeing it, right? And
it's dropped probably 60 or 70% over the last few months.
At least because we talked about CRT. We talked about critical race theory. We talked about vaccine stuff, COVID stuff, pandemic stuff, and even Trump stuff.
Yeah,
I think we have, you can't talk about certain events within an election without bringing up both parties that are involved in the election.
So for us, honestly, on Facebook, I think it's just going to take a couple people with a vendetta to label it as hate speech. Because I've gotten warnings from Facebook. Hey, this doesn't go with our community guidelines. You keep doing this, we're going to take action. And I think they take action instantly. They shadow ban. So, you have whatever, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 people on your Facebook page. And maybe the normal algorithm, and these are all kind of close numbers, no one really knows, but maybe 20% of your people see your posts.
Gotcha.
So if you have 10,000 people, only 2,000 people are seeing those.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They automatically do that right from the top from everyone because they want you to pay to boost the ad to see your own followers, which is insanity.
Yeah.
That changed, I don't know, 6 or 8 years ago, a while ago. When you start getting warnings, they shadow ban. So they will, and for anyone who's not familiar with that term, just means that they won't ban you or stop you from posting, but it's a shadow ban, meaning they just won't push it out to followers and other people.
Yeah.
So you're posting for yourself. No one's seeing it. Yeah. Or a very, very, very small amount of people are seeing it. Mm-hmm. So when we had posts going from 2,000 to 5,000 likes down to 200 to 250 likes in
or even
a week.
2 or 3 likes.
Oh, sometimes the more controversial ones get very, very few.
Right.
And that's what I think most people are upset about is there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's been covered before in public and on podcasts and in the news a little bit, but not by mainstream. Yeah. But even Jack Dorsey, who's the CEO of Twitter, came out and was like, "Yeah, we just basically have an algorithm, and then it's up to it gets flagged, but it's up to the personal employee of Twitter to ban it or not."
Right. Yeah.
That's insanity to me. There's no. It's just that person sees it and goes, "Oh yeah, I don't believe in reform theology. I don't believe in that." Marriages between a man and a woman, or I do believe that a woman has a right to choose banned.
Right.
And now we've gotten and I'm just using those examples, but other things have been
but
banned
it's
as
probably
well too.
happened in that
absolutely
form,
So then you just have one single person at a large corporation who doesn't gets offended or doesn't agree religiously or politically with a post and then bans it.
Right.
And I know that some of our friends in the podcast community, as well as in the reform community that do this kind of stuff, they've reached out to us and said, "Have you guys been seeing some issues and this and that?" And even posted about it. "Hey, we're not getting the views or the interaction that we used to get, and we haven't changed anything. Yeah, content's the same, posting hours the same, how much content, the places they're posting it, and then you see a dramatic shift."
Dramatic. Yeah.
And most Americans are apathetic about this. They're like, they don't care. They're like, just, as long as I can see my news sources and hit a couple friends and get a couple likes on a funny meme, like no one, I don't want to say no one, very few people, but I think it's growing, understand the consequences of when you have basically state-ran media and private-ran media coming together to censor certain things.
Yeah, and it's hard to watch. That's for sure. Do you want to turn to Titus 1:10 through 11? Sure. You got it pulled up there?
Sure.
If you're watching the live video, Titus chapter 1, verses 10 through 11. "For there are many who are insubordinate, empty talkers, and deceivers, especially those of the circumcision party. They must be silenced, since they are upsetting whole families by teaching for shameful gain what they ought not to teach."
Yeah, and this is a great verse. Now, clearly in context, he's talking about the issues that were going on with the Gentiles and the Jews, right? But I think this verse helps us kind of encapsulate the bigger issue that's going on now. The Word of God is timeless, right? Yeah. So we don't ever want to take Titus 1:10 and 11 and go, see, they're talking exactly about tech censorship and Christians being censored. Right. No, absolutely not, because that wasn't around back then, and of course we know that. But he's making a broader point here that there are many who are insubordinate, empty talkers, and deceivers, especially those of the circumcision party, even the people that you think you trust, he's saying. Yeah. Even the fellow Jews of the circumcision party that are deceivers and empty talkers, and they must be silenced. They are upsetting whole families by teaching for shameful gain.
And look, that's part of Facebook right there. And that's part of social media, where people are passing around some crazy story, from a news outlet that no one's really heard of. And I mean, to be honest, I sift through a lot of different stories, even if Ben Shapiro, Newsmax, whoever it is, I mean, even the dreadful CNN, if they say something and it sounds interesting, I will make sure that story is a good story to bring up on Newsy News before I just throw it in there, right? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, empty talkers and deceivers. I mean, there's plenty of that going on. I mean, satire is viewed. There's so many people that used to send Babylon Bee stuff to me, and I was just like, you guys, this is satire. This is fun. They're just having fun. This isn't really, or you would be having a conversation with someone. They'd be like, "Did you hear?" And they bring up a Babylon Bee story, and you're just like, "Oh my gosh!"
It's kind of crazy though, because like Babylon Bee is now like conspiracy theory and Babylon Bee is like they're merging together almost.
Yeah.
It's
like, not the bee. It's,
Yeah, well, it's like they predicted the future on a lot of stuff.
Right.
I think if you go to their website, they have a whole section where they did satire, and then the satire came true. Like, what the heck?
It seems like you told me about that. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
awesome.
one I like that I think really kind of puts us in the right mind to talk about this is Romans 1:18.
Yeah.
For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness. I think we're seeing the wrath of God right now.
Yep.
And unrighteousness of men who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth.
Yeah.
So the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who by their own unrighteousness, the depravity of men, suppress the truth.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening here is they're not preaching against the truth, which they are in some aspects when they're that far gone, but they're suppressing it. They're going, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to know about it. Nope. This is what I think is the truth. We're going to suppress it, push it down,
call good evil,
call
and
good evil good,
Yeah.
put it in the dark. And this is the new enlightenment. This is the new truth. And I think the main way that you do that right now is through tech.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's phone is an extension of their body.
Right.
My wife just went to a conference, homeschool conference. She was gone for 3 days, and she came back, and she said, I heard this talk, and I don't know who it was by, and I can get it for anyone who wants to know. Just let me know. But it was just about the scientific data, which is now 7 years old. It was from 2013. The scientific data showing how the brain chemistry in children is changed when they have devices, video games, tablets, phones in their hand, and they're using them.
Yeah.
It actually rewires the synapses on how you learn, your attention, all these different things. And it's just amazing that, Apple goes, oh, we'll take care of you. We'll just put a little app in there that says how long you've been on your phone. Well, geez, have you ever checked that? It's sometimes it can be depressing.
Yeah, right.
It's like,
exactly.
you average 6 hours a day on your phone. Whatever. And some people can, hey, you work from it. You got to do that kind of stuff. I work from my phone and my tablet. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, how is that changing us?
Yeah.
When we're supposed to be conformed into the glory of God, we're being conformed into the secular culture.
Yeah.
And so if everyone has an extension of their body, the phone in their hand, the best way to suppress truth in unrighteousness is through tech.
Right.
Is through social media, is through news sources, is through videos, right?
It makes me think of Wally.
Wall-E.
Remember that movie?
Wall-E.
Yeah. Where everybody's like sitting in a chair and the chair floats and they're all like really big and they're just super lazy. I think tech can be such a great thing. I mean, you can use this computer to do so many different things. Use the phone for so many different things. But what do most people use it for? Look up cat videos. No, I'm joking.
Right.
Something,
memes.
Memes or whatever, But then again, you can learn a lot of theology from memes, guys. So don't forget that.
I wonder if there was like a group of people sitting in a room that were like, hey, we got this internet thing coming out, and it's going to be awesome to indoctrinate the masses.
Yeah,
and there was
right.
one guy that raised his hand and he was like, yeah, but Christians will be able to use it too and be able to preach the gospel with it.
Yeah.
And the rest of the group was just like, nah, we can count on them just to, not some will use it,
Right.
but the masses will love to be distracted from everyday life.
Yeah.
And I feel like, yes, the internet can be used for good, but
Yeah.
I think sometimes we're like failing
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
drastically at it.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
admit it.
when we look at guys like what they're doing at like Youre TV, I know we've had them on the podcast a few times, Marcus and stuff like that. They're like, no, we're going to use technology to not only advance the kingdom, but to almost like put it in the face of the secularist and be like, no, you don't own art. You
Right.
don't own the medium.
Right.
You don't own technology. Actually, Christ does, and he's ruling and reigning over it, and we're
Yeah.
going to use it for God's glory.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to Romans 1:18, it's like, that's exactly what they're doing, man. They're suppressing the truth.
Well, do you want to go to 2 Corinthians 4:4?
Do it. What do you got?
2 Corinthians 4:4, in their case, the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
I mean, that verse is, it's spot on,
So for those listening too, if you read that, it's God, lowercase g of this world.
Yeah.
referring to the principalities of this air, Satan, Lucifer. And he's saying it's keeping them blind in their minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel, the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. Have you ever had a discussion with someone and they're so blinded to just a simple truth that it's almost just like you're banging your head against a wall?
Yep.
And my wife and I have this conversation often. We're like, how can someone be that?
An Arminian. No, joke. Whoever's out there, we love you.
How can they believe in autonomous free will?
Hey, guys, just joking, guys. But are
God.
we? No, I'm joking. But yeah, no, I get it.
But we have this conversation of like, how can people be so blinded to such a simple truth that seems so clear, that seems so crystal clear to us? And, my wife said one time, she goes, well, they're blinded to the truth by the ruler of this air, by their own sin, by their, own depravity. And you're just like, oh, that's what it means, a veil over your eye. That's what it means when you can't even see a simple truth in front of you. And, to me, I go, that's so simple. And then the Lord reminds me, well, it wasn't simple before you knew me.
Isn't that the truth?
Before I regenerated you, before my grace saved you, lest you forget, like everyone else out there, don't sit on some type of podium, some pedestal, excuse me, and just how can they not know? They're so ignorant. It's like, they are ignorant, and so were you, before Christ.
Yep.
And that's part of the enlightenment of Christ too. Well, that sounded a little new agey. Sorry, Steve Bancars, if you're listening.
Sorry, Steve.
The enlightenment of Christ.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But being enlightened in the way of Christ, being light. You know what I mean? Bringing us into that marvelous light is what I meant.
For sure. Yeah, man. I mean, I think that as we move along into the future, I truly do believe that there is going to be something that happens to where we can actually, let me, I'm trying to figure out the right way to say this, because there are countries that cannot even get a Bible now.
Yeah.
Somebody will be thrown in jail for 9 years. I remember hearing about one guy having one page of the Bible, and that's so sad. And you really think to yourself, like, where are we headed? And even myself being optimistic, mill, post mill, whatever I am, I'll land in both camps.
Not dispensational premill. That's all we do
not dispensational premill. But you know what, man? Like, it does make you wonder where the future is headed and how we are going to be able to keep even a Bible in our home, because what is going to be taken from us once our freedom is taken from us, and that's what is kind of happening right now. Like, we're in this in-between stage where it's like, like the next 10 years, what if it did get worse? How do we have the Word of God in front of us? Is it even going to be allowed on the internet? Are they going to come to our homes and have sniffing dogs that smell the leather in the pages and pull them from our home? Are we going to have thumb drives that are undetected to be able to read the Word?
Well, that's happening in other countries right now.
Right. Yeah. Is that going to end up here? Are there going to be sections of the Bible taken out because it's not inclusive enough? And it's like, I
think that's that is where we're headed. Yeah. If things keep going the way that they're going.
That's why we need to speak up.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think that's why we talk about the COVID stuff, the vaccine passport stuff. Yeah. Like, people are like, oh,
don't be silent.
Just love your neighbor and get your vaccine. And it's like, okay, there's a greater push behind that, though. When you're talking about vaccine passports and you're talking about showing your papers to see if you can go into a marketplace, which is on the table right now.
Yeah.
That's what they're talking about. Yeah. Okay. California just passed their law for their state workers that said they have to be vaccinated if they want to come into work. All government workers, okay? Wow. They have a bill in California right now that's saying for the public, if you want to go into any major grocery store, you can go into a little mom and pop one if you want, but if you want to go into a Walmart, a Target, right? A Kroger, the big one, you have to be vaccinated. They're going to pass that law in California.
Yeah.
So you're going to relegate certain people to certain stores, other people to other stores, all in the name of health and science, which we know neither is true, right? Because the scientific data just doesn't back it up. But that's why we talk about these things, because it is going to affect the church.
Yeah.
Whether your eschatology says the vaccine is the mark of the beast and you can't get it injected, or you say it's the spirit of the Antichrist, and this is just another thing that either lends us to trust Christ or to trust man, whatever that eschatology is, at the end of the day, it's still going to put Christians and true believers in a place to make a choice and go, okay, am I going to trust in the government and man? Basically, the 666, the mark of man, or am I going to trust in God who provides for sparrows, so he's going to provide for me every day?
Yeah.
And I think that's where it even says, and this isn't an eschatology episode, but when people say, oh man, it's an actual mark on your wrist or forehead, I don't know, man. I think that's pretty straightforward. Most people would go, no. It says in Revelation that if even the elect were not elect, they would be fooled by how sneaky this is going to be.
Yeah.
How it's going to slip in on safety and security and world peace and love your neighbor. And aren't we seeing that right now?
Well, Jay Cameron brought up a lot of really good points in his
go back and listen to that.
Yeah, that we did with
about
him
a month ago.
I mean, all about everything that was happening in Canada. And I'm pretty sure you or him said something about Canada usually being 4 or 5 years ahead of us.
Yeah.
And
socially,
socially,
a little more progressive.
Right. So as it comes south down into America, I mean, we are going to have the same type of things happening here unless the church speaks up. And this is not, I'm not talking about physically hurting people whatsoever. If there is any censorship police out there listening to this, I'm just saying, go to your local administration and the local governments, and go to the senators, go to whoever, go to Greg. I mean, seriously, get out here and say something if there's something that you really feel strongly about. I mean, my wife, with the mask mandates for children in schools. I mean, she is a part of a group that is fighting against that. And, and whichever side you're on, that's great. Okay. But my wife is really, trying to fight that fight.
Sure.
With others that truly do feel a certain way about the mask mandates. So for children.
I think you brought up a good point too. You said, we need to, stand up and fight and push back against this. And I think you're highlighting, a great example of, well, if we're censored on big tech, then how do you do that? Well, that's why we have to do what's biblical. People are like, what, man? I post a Christian meme once a week, and I say thoughts and prayers to my friends, and they all know that I'm a Christian. And it's like, well, if that's taken away from you, then what's left? Well, that's why the Bible says one-on-one discipleship and preaching the gospel to the people is so important.
Yeah.
We're not going to, we've had it good for 10, 12 years as Christians on social media. It's not going to be that way for very long. I'm just looking at it, and I just know if things keep going the way that they're going, you will not be able to post certain things without it being fully censored. Yeah. So if I have a Facebook, ministry, as I like to say, I get on there and post a scripture verse. I get on there and ask a question or say something theological about someone. It's like, no, man, that's not ministry. That's like, who are you discipling? Right. Who are you bringing alongside of you and holding accountable, and who's holding you accountable? Who are you counseling and being accountable to in the actual physical church, the gathering of the saints? That's why this whole COVID thing with not being able to gather is such a big deal to us, because biblically the Bible commands us to gather, commands us to disciple, commands us to do all these things in person, not on social media, not like posting a verse every once in a while,
right?
Or a little quip or a quote, like that could be taken away tomorrow,
right?
And it might be. We don't know the way it's going. So I think your point is valid in we have to stand up and push back against this, not only from the legislative side and the political side, but also understand that us being Christians isn't us being Christians on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's as we go out into the world. Jesus didn't say, as you go on social media, make sure you post something nice about me every couple days.
Right.
And do your little Facebook ministry.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to downplay anyone who might have a large following on Facebook or anything like that.
And it's good to have good exhortation out there online and,
100%.
and edifying the body and stuff. But again,
but I'm talking to the everyday Christian who's just kind of like, well, people kind of know I know Jesus. I post some positive things online, and that's my ministry or how I'm evangelizing. And it's like, dude, that could be gone tomorrow.
Right.
Like what they can't take from you, or they can, but that's farther down the road, is you going possibly is discipling other people, preaching the gospel. We see even that under fire as well too.
Yeah. And home churches being invaded, and broken up.
Oh, for sure.
And but you want to wrap it up here? You got some more? Actually, you got some more verses.
I got a couple more verses here, and this one I really like, just because I love Proverbs, but it's so encouraging to me. So we talk about all this stuff, and we go, "Oh my gosh, Big Tech is censoring all these people. They're censoring Christians. They're censoring conservatives." And it's not just necessarily that we're sitting here and going, conservatism's the only way, or we're being political. Yeah. It's just that conservatism lines up mostly with what's biblical for the most part. Okay. There's crony capitalism and there are all these other things within conservatism that is wretched, and I get it. But when you're talking about nuclear family, identifying that there's a creator and there's one creator and it's God alone, limited government, focus on family and education. These are all conservative principles that the Bible preaches, right? They are specifically, and we said this at the top of the show, they're specifically aiming for those type of principles and biblical principles. So Proverbs 4:23 is always an encouragement for me, which says, keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flows the spring of life. So when we have been redeemed by Christ, our heart has springs of life flowing from it. So keep vigilant. Yeah. Keep the fight vigilant. Yeah. Don't be discouraged when that thing gets shadow banned or taken down. Get righteously angry. Yeah. Get righteously upset about it. But I would also say, don't rely on your meme that gets banned because it's hate speech. That's your ministry as well too, or that's you're so upset. Dude, go out into the streets, the highways and the byways, as you go into the marketplace, as you go into your work, as you go and enjoy nature with your family, all those different things that we do, that is where we preach Christ crucified and risen. Yeah. So I think our paradigm needs to shift a little bit. Yes, we need, and I'm in that too. I'm writing resolutions right now in Monroe County that are going to help fight some of these things. So I'm doing it legislatively, but we can't be discouraged. We have to keep vigilant and understand that social media is not the be all and say all for our faith. Right.
And I mean, think about it. I think it might have been Doug Wilson, who I always have a quote from, or someone, from Toby or whoever it is. But, what is Christ doing right now? He's sitting at the right hand of the Father,
ruling and reigning.
He's just sitting there, right? Like, I mean, he's very comfortable in that seat. And, like, why are we sometimes so just like, oh my gosh, did you hear about what happened? Or like, some get online and they got to write this super long post and make sure everybody knows what they're thinking about. And you know what? Like, some of it can be very great. Some of it, but like watch yourself online sometimes, like what you're saying, and even, that goes for us as well on this podcast. I mean, like, we have to be salt and light when it comes down to it. We have to be salt and light, but we also carry a sword, right? Yeah. Like, I mean,
we know how to use it.
Yeah, we know how to use it.
It's meekness.
Absolutely. And we should know our Bible. We should know theology. It's not a bad thing to know who you serve and why you serve them.
Absolutely. Theology is to know God.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
we've heard people say, oh, well, I don't really get into end times eschatology and the original Hebrew and the Greek. And I just want to love God and love myself and show love to other people. And it's like, you don't know how to love yourself and other people unless you know how to love God first.
Exactly.
And you don't know how to love God unless you know who God is. And you don't know who God is unless you have sound biblical theology and doctrines.
Amen.
So it all comes back to that.
Amen.
And at the end of the day, I would encourage everyone who's listening, stay strong in the faith, be in your word, and don't get discouraged when social media does not become a means to an end anymore, because we were never meant for that, man. We're meant for in-person gospel preaching, in-person fellowship, and that's what we're going to continue to do whether the government lets us or not.
Amen.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and as always, God bless. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Dead Men Walking Podcast for full video podcast episodes and clips, or email us at deadmenwalkingpodcast@gmail.com.
None you